Very good. So I will get starting. Thank you all for joining. The already 3 minutes past four. We have given enough time to some people to join. There will be still people joining, but I will get started so we can make it in 1 hour. Thanks all for joining. It's a pleasure to introduce this new series of webinar Duet. So last year we started as the CRS YSC, this control release society, the young scientist community. We organized for the first time this webinar Duet. And now this second year is going to be the industry series. So we pair with industry people and we are going to give a perspective or a focus on the careers in industry. And for that, I would like to first start thanking, of course, the people behind this organizing team. So we have a huge group of young people, which is the CRS YSC, the Young Scientist Committee of the Control Release Society, which we regularly meet to try to put together some activities that are valuable for the young scientists in drug delivery and science. And this is specifically the one you see here, the organizing team of this webinar Duet series. So together with Melina, who has been co-leading this event with me, and we have also, of course, a bunch of other people that you can see in the screen that were supporting us in the organization of this event, as well as, of course, the executive team of the YSC, which you can see below, social media lead, and obviously the supporters, the headquarters of the CRS, which support constantly all of our initiatives, and that's also something to thank. But at the end of the day, we would like to thank two speakers here today. So this is the first webinar Duet in industry that will be on entrepreneurship and innovation in drug delivery. And for that, we have two speakers that have and that showcase perfectly this example, Dr. Dominic and Dr. Well. And before introducing them, that I will pass the floor to Melina. Before that, I would like to just thank, of course, all of you that are attending this webinar and for the interest in this webinar. So hopefully will be very useful and you will enjoy as much as we did preparing it. Just for showing or kind of explaining a bit how it's going to work, basically we are going to have both talks one after each other, about 15-20 minutes each. They will share their perspective, their experiences, and after that we will have about 20 minutes of open questions and answer that you all will be able to raise questions to our speakers and learn from them, because it's a unique opportunity to understand a bit more how to become an entrepreneur in the drug delivery or in the pharmaceutical field, in the biomedical field. Very important in terms of organization. So please, if someone has a question, we will encourage in the last 20 minutes to raise your hand. We may allow to unmute and speak, but please let the organizing team, so ourselves, to allow you to unmute and speak, because then we will order a bit the people and the questions. Or feel free, of course, to place all your questions in the chat and we will read them loud for the speakers to answer. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Melina. Please, Melina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. This is the first webinar series that we're doing. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, who is Dominic Witzigmann. Dr. Dominic is an entrepreneurial scientist and a 2024 highly cited researcher, a distinction that recognizes him as one of the world's most influential researcher in nucleic acid delivery. Throughout his career, he has held key research positions at leading institutions, focusing on safety and toxicology, RNAi and cancer, and targeted DNA delivery. He later joined Professor Peter Cooley's team to specialize in extrahepatic RNA delivery and RNA-based genome editing. Dominic has held significant leadership roles within Canada's Nanomedicines Innovation Network and served on the board of the CRS Gene Delivery and Genome Editing Focus Group. Today, he is the co-founder and president of Nanovation Therapeutics, where he is advancing next-generation LNP technologies to enable the future of genetic medicines. Dominic, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Melina, for the invitation, and thanks everyone for joining. I will just share my screen. Give me a second. If just someone can give me short feedback when you see it, then I can get started.
Yes, we
All
can.
good. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And like, I really see this as an opportunity to like interact with everyone. So if you have questions and comments, please put it into the chat. So I will have a presentation. We'll talk about my career and then also some take-home messages and learnings from where I started and where I am now. But it's really like you are more than welcome to ask any question. And as Melina indicated, like full disclosure, I'm the co-founder and president of Nanovation Therapeutics, but that's not the main focus. I will not touch base on Nanovation specifically and a lot. We really like focus on my path to where I am now. And like you will see, like when we had something in the introduction, like I have done PhD in Basel, a postdoc, have been a research associate at various institutes. Like I was quite active in like some social committees and started the PhD representatives in Switzerland and Basel, and also the Pharma PhD Club. I will talk about this. Have been at the CRS focus group of gene delivery and genome editing, and then also co-founded the NanoCore as part of this Nanomedicines Innovation Network before then actually getting into that role. So plan for the next like 15 to 20 minutes is really that I will shortly like outline a bit like how did I get where I am now in terms of talking about the past, then the present, what have been the key learnings and some of the take-home messages I want to give all of you. And then like last but not least, like excite everyone for gene delivery and like drug delivery and like where I see the future. Because that's, I think, one of the key points to really have always this North Star and where we want to go and how to motivate us. And so as explained, like career, learnings, my purpose. Let's start with the past and where did everything start? And I will flip around a bit like chronologically and like did my studies in Freiburg, a small city in the south of Germany, and pharmaceutical sciences because I knew I wanted to do something related to patients. After that, I did some internships at different research institutes, including the University College in London. This was more focused then on toxicity aspects. And following that, I went to the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg, which is also in the south of Germany, mainly focusing on microRNAs, siRNA approaches, which also helped me now because there's a lot ongoing in terms of how to regulate mRNAs with microRNA binding sites, for example. So every kind of like research step I had like influences a bit my career and my like, let's say, breadth of knowledge I have. Following that, it was clear for me that I want to start a PhD. And I knew like drug delivery is what I want to do. So I applied for different positions at different universities across Europe, and then decided that I want to start at the University of Basel in Switzerland, like really in the north of Switzerland, focusing on drug delivery of small molecules and nucleic acids to the liver, and especially different liver cell types, including the hepatocytes, which later became kind of like one of the first siRNA drugs because that's targeting the liver. And following my PhD, I did then a postdoc and switched a bit the topics because I saw there's kind of a neat interest in targeted DNA therapeutics and like how to have longer expression in certain cell types, as well as then like working and developing some in vivo tools. So like how to screen beyond like drug delivery systems beyond mice, and then establish some of the work we have done on zebrafish, for example. And then came kind of the really like one of the major milestones, which changed a bit the direction, which was that I decided I want to go abroad to do my research. So I went from University of Basel and my mentor there, Jörg Huwiler, to Canada. And I decided to join Peter Kalles in 2018. I met Peter already at various like drug delivery conferences. There has been always the Liposome Advances conference end of the year. So I met Peter for the first time already 2015, then it was every 2 years, 2017. And it was clear Peter at that time had developed already 3 drug delivery systems for mainly anti-cancer drugs. And these got approved by FDA and EMA. So it was clear that he does research which is translated into the clinic, which I found really important. Because like during my research stays at different institutes, I saw really great science, but sometimes I missed the connection to the patient. So this was really an opportunity I wanted to have. So I decided to go to Canada, and this was supported by the Swiss National Science Foundation. So I put quite a bit of work into like getting funding to make this happen. And this was then really the step into like RNA delivery. This was perfect timing because 1 year later, like roughly 1 year after I joined Peter, Onpetro got approved. So Onpetro is the first siRNA therapeutic, which Peter's teams in Canada and Alnylam in Boston co-developed. So that's a lipid nanoparticle delivering siRNA to the liver. So it was kind of like what I did at my PhD, delivery to hepatocytes, and then moving to Canada, kind of like cross-linked. And this was the first ever siRNA therapeutic, which was obviously a great success for Vancouver and the entire world, and especially the patients, because this was the first, let's say, option for treating such a disease. And this also like helped them to raise more money in Vancouver. So I was lucky enough to be with Peter and various teams and connected. So I became part of the so-called Nanomedicines Innovation Network. This was in 2019. And what, together with Peter and also Jay, who is also co-founder and chief scientific officer of Nanovation Therapeutics, we decided to start something we called at that time the NanoCore. So what the opportunity we saw is that within this network in Canada, this was kind of an excellence cluster. There are great scientists and great clinicians. They have really clever ideas how to treat diseases. Most of them don't have a clue about drug delivery. So let's work together really closely and collaboratively. And we develop as a NanoCore the drug delivery systems like the lipid-based nanomedicines for the different teams. And initially we thought, okay, maybe let's aim for 8 projects over the first year. And like after 1.5 years, we had over 40 projects actually we worked on. So this really propelled this to the next stage, that we were like highly involved in a lot of collaborative projects and got to know a lot of different like angles of drug delivery and how to deliver to different tissues. And then 2020, I think most people have already forgotten. It's kind of like, I was recently at my alma mater at the University of Basel giving a talk. Like, I think we sometimes forget how weird the situation was with all the masks and like separating each other. But like this was then obviously a breakthrough for mRNA therapeutics and vaccines, because obviously the Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccine showed great efficacy, which propelled our field to the next stage. So another event which I obviously haven't planned, it happened. And this really triggered then the key moment where I'm now, that based on the drug delivery technologies we had developed within NMIN, like the Nanomedicines Innovation Network, the huge interest from COVID, which triggered then a lot of like interest in what we do as part of the NanoCore, we decided, so Jay, Peter, myself and others, to start Nanovation Therapeutics. And this when Jay, myself became co-founders, and even so, like Jay became the co-founding CSO, I became the co-founding CEO. At that time, when you start as an N of 2, it's like becoming, and I always like to say, see whatever is needed at that moment. Because when you start with 2 people, you have to take care of everything. You have to take care of like how to develop partnership agreements, consulting contracts. There's like safety aspects, like you need to hire the first people, you need to license, organize laptops, organize a space. Now, like 6 years later, we have like different functional units like R&D, operations, BD, marketing, people and culture, finance, and different people leading that. But when you start, obviously you have to take care of everything, which is super interesting because you learn a lot and see a lot of different aspects. And this really, when we started Nanovation, and like there are just 2 slides about Nanovation headquartered in Vancouver. We also expanded to Europe and have created subsidiaries in Europe. And the key focus of Nanovation is what we already did before, is like developing lipid nanoparticles for our partners to enable their genetic medicines. And this is really like the key technology we had developed since the start. It's a technology we call long circulating LNP. So like conventional lipid nanoparticles typically end up in the liver. So we work then on a new technology, which we call LCLNP, to deliver beyond the liver and then enable, for example, technologies for in vivo CAR T-cell therapy, for stem cell editing, for like different types of cancer vaccines. And this technology we then use to really work with different partners. So it really stemmed from like founding Nanovation with a really strong scientific expertise, developing key technology and creating the IP portfolio, like intellectual property, and then working with partners like small biotech to really large pharma like Novo to then like build the company organically. Obviously, this sounds like a, let's say, a very linear path, but like obviously some of this has been planned, some of it not. And like in the next like 5 to 10 minutes, I just want to go to the present, like what have been the key learnings, and everything retrospectively starts to make sense because like I learned a lot at every stage of my career, which helps me now. But like there have been also some learnings and things I would always do again. And these are the things I want to share with you. So one is being at the right time, at the right place. And I would say, having joined Peter 1 year before OnPetro got approved, being there, starting the Nanomedicines Innovation Network, and then COVID came, like other individuals could have started companies, but it's really the opportunity was there. Peter had started companies before, and it's really to say, hey, we take the step, even so we had planned something else. Maybe now is the massive opportunity, so let's do that and use that opportunity and go ahead. So like one takeaway and take-home message I want to give you is like every career step pushes you to a step forward, and always think about the top positive aspects, but don't shy away to make a step which you maybe haven't initially planned. How to find these opportunities, and one learning I would say from my perspective is like talk about your dreams. Like it was clear for me, for example, that following my PhD, I want to go abroad. I didn't know where. Obviously, Vancouver is a great hotspot for drug delivery. There's Boston with around Bob Langer and alumni. But I was talking with a lot of people and then got to know postdocs who have been in Vancouver. I talked with them about their experience. So there's always someone who knows someone. So that's really important. If you don't talk about your dreams, no one will know about it, and no one can maybe give you some hints how to get there. So like this, something, a second take-home message, like really talk about what you want to achieve, because this will help you to like that people might give you some hints and tips and tricks. Build up your network. I like to collaborate a lot, and you might have seen it like through my like academic career. I worked even during my PhD. I was having a lot of different collaborations. Some like PhD students, they really focus on their project, which is great. I always had the perspective, if you work with others, you can like gain much more because you learn from others, but also you can never be an expert at everything. But then it's also like science is pretty damn difficult. So sometimes things work out, sometimes not. But like, first of all, it's important to enjoy what you're doing. And then when you collaborate with different teams, some collaborations work well, some don't work well. But yeah, focus on the ones which work well, but also keep in mind that you will always meet twice in life. Why I say this, some people have the tendency maybe then to be really annoyed about some other individuals. It doesn't help, because maybe in the future, that's your future boss, your future team colleague or whatever. So like, yeah, end always with a positive note, because you never know what's happening in the future. Another one is enjoy working with others, what I said. And this is like really like kudos to Melina and every one of the organizers here. And while I'm always happy to support such things, because I benefited a lot when I was part of such societies. As mentioned, I was a board member of the gene delivery, gene editing focus group of the CRS. I initiated like the PhD club at the university, and like I learned a lot by like organizing different events. I like several times organized the PhD retreat at my university with like close to 100 different PhD students. And yeah, you learn a lot in organizing things, connecting with others, how to work as a team, which also helps me now to figure out like what is the best way to interact with different individuals. And I just like give you some, like this is a slide I pulled out of a slide deck which I used, I think in 2013 or 14 during my PhD. Like this is what I have initiated, and then like work with others on that. And maybe that's maybe a motivation for some of you if you have not such things at your university. We created this PhD club. So we created like these 5 different events. One was once a month, we had like a social event for PhD students of the biocenter, like biology, molecular bio students, as well as pharma students. With snacks and just like networking. Then we had these seminars and courses where we invited external speakers. And like, don't shy away to contact big names. Like everyone thought, okay, like when we do these seminars, maybe we can invite some local speakers. My approach was always, if you don't ask, you cannot get a no. So like we actually were successful. We got a Nobel laureate invited. We got the CEO from CRISPR Therapeutics invited. We got someone from the executive board of who joined us. So like really big names who were willing, because we were PhD students, to support us. And this was great to make connections. Then we wrote this newsletter on a monthly basis to give updates what we are doing, created this Pharma Center alumni network and had some meetings. And then also this, what we called lunch and learn, like once a month. We invited PhD students, smaller groups, organized some pizza, and then people could start to talk about their science. And this really helped also to create a network, which obviously now, like I know a lot of people who still live and work in Basel at different pharma. Then move ahead, like make decisions. Like it's always hard to make decisions, but it's always better to make a decision than no decision. And this is also learning I had to learn. Sometimes you try to make decisions as a team. Sometimes you need to make a decision on your own. Always keep in mind what I never do, I never regret a decision because it was the best decision at that moment. And one thing, since this is also focused on entrepreneurial spirit, building a company is damn difficult, but it's also fun because you can influence a lot. So like, don't shy away from this, but like it also means you think a lot about the company because there are things where you have to make decisions and maybe it wasn't the most enjoyable decision because sometimes you have to also make hard decisions about like team members, but at the end you have to think about like the bigger picture, how to move the company forward. Another take-home message: support and help others. I've always had my, let's say, mantra. If people ask me for help, or for support, let's say I have to be cognizant of my time and what I can do, but like I will always offer my help, either by connecting them to other people, providing some input. But obviously the time gets more and more difficult to like allocate. I never expect something back. Like things will pay out. Sometimes people help me without expecting something back. So I don't start to work with someone and support them to expect, okay, at the end they will give me something back in terms of their network, etc. And then I think there are 2 or 3 more. How to know what jobs are out there. Obviously industry, I mentioned, like within innovation, we have R&D, operations, BD marketing, finance, people, culture. But also like within R&D, there are different types of jobs, which like within business development, there are different jobs. One thing helps is like obviously to do internships. This is, I would always suggest, it's a great opportunity to get some insights, or people are always open to go for a coffee. Like if you know, hey, I might be interested in business development, see who is like somewhere close by at the conference you join, or maybe close by at the city, and there's an industry like a pharma company with people at business development. Ask them, invite them for a coffee and have a chat. Like it might help you to get a better insight, like what is actually their job and what do they do day to day. And if you invite people for a short coffee or a short chat, I would say majority of people will be willing to do that. And then another take-home message: do not choose a job or position. It's really at the end about the team. Like, let's say I super grateful from my mentors I had, like Jörg Huwieler during my PhD, as well as like Peter Carles in Vancouver, because they gave me a lot of freedom and like I could develop myself, and like with my motivation I could achieve a lot. Not every mentor is like that, but it's really important to think about like who is your mentor as well as a team. Like about building a company, I would always try to start a company with someone else. Like as mentioned, Jay and myself have started innovation together. I would always do it the same way. There are so many difficult decisions at the beginning. I mean, just start a new company. It's always great to have like kind of someone you can bounce ideas off and like discuss and then make a decision together. And this is like the second last one, how to find the right job. I think really think about yourself, like what is the purpose? What do you enjoy most? Because at the end, if you enjoy a lot what you do, it's much easier to go to work every day. It sounds easy, but like this is why like I want to end with like the future. There are 2 slides, what I call my MTP, my massive transformative purpose. It's a term which someone else developed, but like I always think about the big picture, like what do I want to achieve? And like when you just look at the recent article, like end of last year, published by Nature Biotech, 4 out of the 10 like research breakthroughs are enabled by drug delivery, by lipid nanoparticles. It's in vivo T-cell therapy, gene editing using CRISPR-Cas, recombinases, or cancer vaccines, like really big topics of human mankind and medicine. So yeah, these are exciting topics we work on at Nanovation. I really hope that everyone of you is excited about these things. And this is my last take-home message. If you don't take away some of the other things, keep in mind LNPs have started to revolutionize medicine, and they will continue. I'm pretty confident. And with that, thank you.
So thank you again, Dominic, for sharing your journey and your valuable advices. Now we will move on for the next speaker, Dr. Well, how was that? I hope I speak your name correctly. Is an award-winning scientist, entrepreneur, and CEO and co-founder of GWP, a German medtech startup developing clinically translatable drug delivery systems in regenerative medicine. His current work centers on engineering human bone grafts as controlled micropharmacies for localized therapeutic delivery in orthopedic applications. He previously held senior development and leadership roles in cell therapy and orthobiologics across Europe and the United States, contributing to FDA-cleared allografts, CAR-T programs that achieve EMA orphan drug approval and multiple clinical trial authorizations, as well as major U.S. federal biomedical initiatives. So please welcome Dr. Well for our next speaker. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Kim and Maltini and Dominic also for the presentation. Thank you, CRS, for the invitation. I would like to take you through a similar journey. There's a lot of similarities between Dominic and I. Do you see the presentation? Perfect. All right. Well, Dominic touched on a lot of good points, so that is really good. He did a great job to set this up. So I'll take you through, first of all, my journey. So what I want to talk you through is what did I go through, a little bit in a brief summarized way, and then take you through what does it take to do a transition from the academia to the industry, how to start a startup, what are the differences between the United States and Germany. It's two countries that I worked at and I lived at and I studied at. And then a take-home message if I was 28, which I'm not, I'm 43, but I think a lot of you are much younger. So I did my undergrad in the US at California State University, Fresno, moved to Germany to do my master's in biomedical engineering at Aachen, and I did my PhD at EXMI, where Kim and Rahaf and Tvan are. That's how I met Tvan. That was my introduction to drug delivery, because I was doing cancer research. I am by training a cancer researcher. I was working on the microenvironment, manipulation and imaging. I found what Twan was doing is really exciting, so I wanted to do something with drug delivery. I ended up writing a grant because I was under a completely different project. That was my first grant that I got funded, so I could actually work with a group that was basically formed by Twan. And that was my introduction to drug delivery. My focus stayed on cancer, stayed on therapy, and after getting some, this is what I'm pointing at. Those are the products in academia. Papers, reviews, grants, that's the product, right? So when you start to shift to industry, your product shifts. And that's where I went to Miltenyi. I went to Miltenyi Biotech in 2016 to join them in their cell therapy platform. I've built the preclinical platform for them, and we were very successful in multiple clinical trials. The first European dual CAR approval, CD 2019, as an orphan drug designation. That is a complete change in what a product is. It's not paper, it's not grant. There's a defined product that has a regulatory filing, that has reimbursement, and a completely different QMS than what you have, which is missing. There is no quality management system in academia. We publish papers, we write grants. In the industry, we make products, we apply for regulatory applications, we do regulatory clearances, we bring them in hospitals, into patients, there is reimbursement, there's quality all around it. That success led me to be recruited by a startup in the US. I was there for about 3.5 years. I've built the bone marrow banking system and turned a waste product into 2 products that were approved by the FDA. That exposure also allowed me to see orthopedics. The waste product was bone, and I was able to turn it into bone allograft. During that exposure, I learned about a lot of new unmet clinical needs. And that's where the idea came to establish JWP. After I came back to Europe, I was thinking, what do I want to do? And as Dominic was saying, do something you enjoy. It should be fun. You should be driven to do that. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to combine the newly taken knowledge in orthopedics with my drug delivery. And that's how we established JWP, to do drug elutions in orthopedic malignancies. So what surprised me most after I left academia? Again, we were writing grants, doing research, publishing paper, doing reviews, attending conferences, right? When you go to the industry, the first thing that hits you is a QMS, quality management system, and what it takes with it. The intricate and nuanced regulatory claims, how intricate they should be, right? Small wording can change a lot on what a product is, or is it competitive? Is there a predicate to it or not? Time takes a lot for fundraising. There's a lot of politically driven decisions. Regulatory agencies are slow, and a product doesn't mean it's going to sell if you have a product that's good, right? It has to be bought. So the first thing is how to transition from academia into a scientific entrepreneurship. You have to change your identity. If you stay a scientist, then you can continue doing science. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And you can be maybe a CSO. But if you want to establish a startup, if you want to be a CEO, if you want to be a founder, there has to be a psychological switch in the head where you're going, I am a decision maker. And as again, Dominic said, you take decisions, they're the best decision at the time. That doesn't mean they're always the best, but you have to take that decision and move forward. Then your risk tolerance has to shift, especially for Europeans. We are very anchored into risk mitigation and risk aversion. We have to switch that into, you have to take big steps, require taking calculated risks, not uncalculated risks. Then you have to get information, training, support, definitely recruit people that have these expertise in intellectual property, funding, and reimbursement awareness. Finally, you have to find that balance between perfection and speed. In science, when we publish, we want perfect. When you're trying to make a product, you want what is known as an MVP with speed, minimal viable product, and I'll come to it. That's what moves you from hypothesis to product. The key components of product of an academic research is we make new knowledge, we publish it, we write grants, and we teach. When you are in the industry, whether it's healthcare, medtech, biotech, the very first thing, there's a problem. There's an unmet clinical need, right? If it's software, it might be an unmet, technological need. So that's why clinical is in climbers. Then you have to have a technological advantage, followed by market validation, and part of the validation is competition. Then you have to get early capital on. You have to figure out your regulatory pathways, IP, and reimbursement, and always focus on MVP logic, minimal viable product, which is part of the TRLs. If you're going to ever develop a product, you need to focus on the TRLs, and we'll touch on it. This is an example from our company. The unmet clinical need are complex fractures and bone infections that coexist in 8 indications are now treated in 2 surgeries. 2 surgeries mean a lot of time, a lot of cost, side effects, especially that antibiotics is applied in between IV for 8 weeks. That's the unmet clinical need. How to solve it? Now we bring in the technological advantage, right? We're taking allografts and turning them into a regenerative bone material and a drug delivery platform. It's a controlled elution of drugs where we can treat infections locally and regenerate bone. Problem first, product second. And it all has to be best in TRLs. TRLs are technology readiness levels. And now you're going to start seeing it more and more coming even in grants. In Germany now they're required to say, if you're doing a grant with academia industry, you have to say, where is the TRL, right? TRL is just an idea right here. Proof of concept is number 3, for example, right? Always match your execution plan to your financial plan, to your IV plan, to the TRL, which means, what am I doing in the lab? How much money do I need to get to this step? Do I patent now? Do I file later? Do I keep it as a trade secret, right? And do I have enough money to go to the next round? How do you start? What is your goal? Do you want to make a startup and for fun? Most of us not. We want to bring the product to the market. Do you want to do an initial public offering, an IPO? Do you want to sell it and have it acquired by another company? You have to have this clarity a little bit early on because it depends on the structure, right? In Germany, there is the GmbH, which is almost a limited liability company, but there's also the UG, which is a pathway to get there. Do you need a structure where you have a holding company and an execution company? Because when you're going to sell, the tax structure will change completely. So keep in mind, the process in Germany, at least, I don't know about the rest of Europe, is complicated and long. It takes about 2 months. In the US, it takes about 20 minutes online. All right. Then how long will you survive without external funding, especially if you are a spinoff? If you are coming out of a university or in the university, do you have grants, and how long can they sustain you, right? And when do you need to start looking for external grants? If you're in my case, we are bootstrapping. My partner and I are bootstrapping, which means we made some money elsewhere and are spending it to get us somewhere, right? How long can we sustain doing this? This is essential for your strategy. And finally, what is your financial strategy? Do you have all the resources? Do you know what is the non-dilutive options that you have? What are the dilutive options that you have? How long and how fast? So finally, what expertise are you missing? Dominic also touched on this. Nobody is good at everything. Honestly, I think people are good at 1 to 2 things. Some of us might be good at 3, but after 3, you know, your level of expertise decreases significantly. And therefore, you need to really find out that a great team is made of complementary expertise. I've seen it with a lot of academic spin-off. There's 5 professors and 17 researchers. They're great for research, but that's not a team that builds a company. If you play football and you have 14 goalkeepers and 4 defenders, you're not scoring any goals, right? So you have to approach it of what the complementary expertise that you need. And therefore, define and recruit characters, not just experiences. If you have multiple options of the same expertise, find the right character fit, not the big name, not the star. The character fit is essential for a team to function, right? So I found my great fit. This is me, and this is what my competencies are. I'm a biomedical engineer and a scientist, but I need somebody who understands the market, who understands sales, who understands market analysis, penetration into that particular market. Jacob is my partner. He brings what I don't have. That's why we make a good team. For founders, and we bootstrap. That means we spent our own money, which we made from another company, right? We have another company that generates income, startup burns income, right? But now, is that enough? That's enough for a core. That's not enough to put a company together. And therefore, you need to borrow credibility. You need to find people who are willing to help you. And we go back to networking. I'll touch on it. Dominic did. Very important, right? Tvan is our scientific advisor. We need somebody who even has more knowledge in that regard, in the detail of drug delivery. When it comes to bones, when it comes to aspects of manufacturing, that is my expertise. But I need a star in drug delivery. And regulatory and commercialization, we have Lee with those experiences that we need. Also, you need a clinical support, a major surgeon, a major physician. Frank, for us, was a great co-el and a supporter. IP and legal, you need somebody who knows when to file, what to file, and do you file everything as a patent or do you keep a trade secret? You need financials. Carol is a great supporter of us with that experience, and Matthew for branding and marketing. Now you have a team that can put a company together, right? Even they sit on the advisory board, you need these experiences till you build them, because early on you don't have enough capital to hire people. So network. Dominic touched on it, I'll touch on it again. Network. Talk to people, but be genuine. Build relationships. Don't do transactional. Transactional doesn't lead far. So how do you go next? You go funding. You have to go get funding. Either you create self-finance, or you do non-dilutive grants, national and EU in Europe, or you do SME designed bank loans. For example, in our state, in NRV, there's a convertible note from the NRV bank that gives you the money right now, but does not take interest till 6 years later. that's very, very family friendly, right? So pay attention to not just can I get the money, how do I get the money, how long and when do I need to pay back? Business angels will help. And finally, venture capitalists and strategic funds, right? That's where it is dilutive. You're giving parts of your company away. So since I was asked to touch on the differences between Europe, or at least Germany and the US, since are the two countries that I've lived most of my life in and studied in both, there are differences. The first one is the risk culture, right? The EU is really, failure is a reputational cost, right? You can't fail, especially in Germany. You can't fail. It's very hard to fail. It's very hard to accept failure. The risk is on the technology. In the US, failure is seen as a learning experience. You can learn from your failure and get better. The betting is on the team, not on the technology, right? So this is very, very important to realize and internalize. Second, the funding pathway. US has a lot of venture capital. You can get it earlier. People keep saying there's a lot of money in the US. Yes, but it's dilutive. You have much more money that is non-dilutive in the EU. So it's the flip side of the coin. You're not gonna pass dilutive in Europe as easily as in the US, but there's a lot of resources from non-dilutive grants locally, nationally, I mean, per country, and at the EU level. Use that to your advantage. We're doing both. Valuation logic. The US values the vision and the market size, so they bet on the team. They see where your vision, how big is the market. They're opportunity focused. In Europe, they look at milestones, they look at the technology, and they do de-risking. They are risk-aversive focused. Two different strategies. You can play in between, but you have to be very clear about how you approach that. Governance and investor. That's a major difference. There is active hands-on performance-driven boards in the US, and they let you operationally if you're the scientist building the technology. In Germany, it's more structured, it's formal because it's bank influenced, and it can be intrusive. It can be too much control that you have to do reports every month or something like that, right? To each one, there are advantages and disadvantages, and you have to internalize this. So which culture fits you? In our case, both, because we can adjust to both, but it really depends how you want to approach that. Finally, the ecosystem does not determine your success. It just determines how you think about risk, funding, and growth. Something I really want to point out, major difference is IP. In Germany, the patent is a checkbox. People ask for it, you check it, they move on. In the US, it's not. It's an IP strategy. And I am much more focused on IP strategy. A patent is a form, one form of IP protection. Not the only form, and not always a perfect form. It's a good form when applied properly. It costs a lot of money to file it. It costs a lot of money to defend it. Trade secrets cost you nothing to file it. It's easier to win a case, right, if there's infringement. But it's also, you can't build on it that much. So just internalize that patent is not everything. It's not the key to everything, okay? It is really essential and can cost startups a lot of money early on. So if I was 28, which I'm not, I'm 43. If I was 28 and I look back at where I was, this is what I would do. I would really obsess over the problem. The technology, you can develop it, you can change it. The problem is there, it exists, right? I would learn regulatory strategy really early on, right? I learned it because I worked at companies. I didn't go from the academia into a startup. If you're doing that spin-off, please educate yourself on regulatory. Very important. It's completely missing in our educational system. Also, bring credibility before raising money. That's where the network comes. That was major publication, big project, working at other industry partners, establish that credibility. Choose your co-founder very carefully, more than idea. I did. I chose my co-founder very carefully because people don't change, but ideas do, right? We already have a second platform we're working on, right? But you can't change somebody you're basically commercially married to. And I would protect my focus aggressively. Really, really focus, be very strategic, and don't chase just multiple ideas. That's it from my side. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and would love to take any questions or interactions. Thank you.